Psychiatrist, physician, and consciousness researcher David R Hawkins developed a map of the levels of human consciousness that uses a muscle testing technique called applied kinesiology to document the nonlinear spiritual realm. Essentially, in this technique, one says a statement and tests the strength of a muscle after saying that statement. If the muscle goes weak, the statement is considered false, catabolic, or life-threatening. If it stays strong, it is anabolic or life-enhancing. I'm not going to get too much into the research because it's pretty elaborate in his book, but essentially what he created was a scale of consciousness, and he found that people live their lives at different states, and those states created an experience in the world. So if you believe the world to be an awful, dark place, your experience of the world is going to be dark and awful, and your level of consciousness will therefore follow. But if you believe the world to be a beautiful place and you have a beautiful experience, that could also be a different state of consciousness. And so this scale represents what those states look like, and you could see where you fall and where you can go or go down from. Level 20. Shame. Shame is extremely close to death. Child sexual abuse victims who experience shame have warped personalities for a lifetime if unresolved through therapy. It is extremely destructive to emotional and psychological health. Guilt. Level 30. So commonly used in our society to manipulate and punish, unconscious guilt results in psychosomatic disease, suicidal behavior, and some struggle with it their entire lives. Guilt provokes rage, and killing is usually its expression. Apathy. Level 50. This level is characterized by poverty, despair, and hopelessness. Apathy is a state of helplessness. These are homeless, aged, and isolated people. Grief. Level 75. This is the level of sadness and loss. Most humans have experienced it for periods of time, but those who remain at this level live life in constant regret. In grief, one sees sadness everywhere. The sadness of children, the sadness of the world, the sadness of life itself. This level colors one's entire vision of existence. Fear. Level 100. At this level, there's a lot more life energy available. Fear runs much of the world. Fear of enemies, of old age or death, fear of rejection, and a multitude of social fears are basic motivators in most people's lives. From the viewpoint of this level, the world looks hazardous, full of traps and threats. Once fear becomes one's focus, the endless fearful events of the world feed it. Desire. 125. Desire moves us to expend great efforts to achieve goals or obtain rewards. The desire for money, prestige, or power runs the lives of many of those who have risen above fear as their limiting predominant life motive. Desire has to do with accumulation and greed, but desire is unsatiable. Satisfaction of one desire is merely replaced by unsatisfied desire for something else. Anger. Level 150. Desire leads to frustration, which in turn leads to anger. Anger can either lead to constructive or destructive action, but anger expresses itself most often as resentment and revenge, and is therefore volatile and dangerous. Channeled unhealthily, anger leads to hatred, which has an erosive effect on all areas of a person's life. Pride. Level 175. This is the level aspired by most people today. People feel positive as they reach this level, in contrast to the other lower energy fields. But pride is defensive and vulnerable because it is dependent upon external conditions, without which it can suddenly revert to a lower level. The downside of pride, therefore, is arrogance and denial. These characteristics block growth. Thus, pride is a very sizable block to the acquisition of real power. Courage. Level 200. At the level of courage, an attainment of power occurs. Therefore, it is also the level of empowerment. This is the zone of exploration, accomplishment, fortitude, and determination. At lower levels, the world is seen as hopeless, sad, and frightening. But at the level of courage, life is seen to be exciting, challenging, and stimulating. At the lower levels of consciousness, populations and individuals drain energy from society without reciprocating. People at this level put back into the world as much energy as they take. Neutrality. 250. At the neutral level, a person can say, well, if I don't get this job, then I'll get another. The mark of this level is a confident capability to live in the world. This is the beginning of inner confidence. Sensing one's power, one is therefore not easily intimidated and is not driven to prove anything. Willingness. 310. Jobs are done adequately at the neutral level. At the level of willingness, work is done well, and success in all endeavors is common. Growth is rapid. At this level, one has overcome inner resistance to life and is committed to participate. At this level, people become genuinely friendly, and social and economic success seem to follow automatically. Acceptance. 350. At this level of awareness, a major transformation takes place, with the understanding that oneself is the source of and creator of the experience of one's own life, with the realization that the source of happiness is within oneself. At this more evolved stage, nothing so-called out there has the capacity to make one happy, and love is not something that is given or taken away by another, but is created within. Reason, level 400. At this level, one is capable of handling large, complex amount of data, making rapid, correct decisions, and understanding the intricacies of relationships. This is the level of science, medicine, and of generally increased capability of conceptualization and comprehension. At this level, it's easy to become infatuated with the concepts and theories, ending up in intellectualism and missing the essential point. Although reason is highly effective in a technical world where the methodologies of logic dominate, reason itself, paradoxically, is the major block to reaching high levels of consciousness. Transcending this level is relatively uncommon. Love, level 500. Love is not intellectual and does not proceed from the mind. Love emanates from the heart. It has the capacity to lift others and accomplish great feats because of its purity of motive. Reason deals with particulars, whereas love deals with wholes. Love focuses on the goodness of life in all its expression. This is the level of true happiness. Joy, 540. As love becomes more and more unconditional, it begins to be experienced as an inner joy. This is not the sudden joy of a pleasurable turn of events. It is a constant companion to all activities. Joy arises from within each moment of existence. This is the level of healing and tapping into one's spirituality. The hallmark of this state is compassion. People who have attained this level have a notable effect on others. The world one sees at this level is one of exquisite beauty and perfection of creation. Things happen effortlessly by synchronicity, and the world and everything in it seem to be an expression of love and divinity. Peace, level 600. 600, their lives will become legendary. Compassion pervades all motivations. This is the level of saints. This level of consciousness is associated with words such as transcendence, self-realization, and God consciousness. Not uncommonly, individuals at this level remove themselves from the world. Some become spiritual teachers. Others work anonymously for the betterment of mankind. Perception at this level is sometimes reported as occurring in slow motion, suspended in time and space. Everything is connected to everything else by a presence whose power is infinite. This awesome revelation takes place non-rationally, so that there is an infinite silence in the mind which has stopped conceptualizing. Enlightenment, 700 to 1000. Those that operate at this level set in place attractor energy fields that influence all of mankind down through the ages. At this level, there is no longer the experience of an individual personal self as separate from others. Rather, there is an identification of self with consciousness and divinity. The transcendence of the ego also serves by example to teach others how it can eventually be accomplished. This is the peak of evolution of consciousness in the human realm. Levels of consciousness in religions. Christianity. The level of truth originally taught by Jesus ranks at 1,000, the highest possible. By the 2nd century, it had dropped to 930. By the 6th century, 540. And Crusades at the 11th century had dropped it to its current level of 498, with the Aramaic version calibrating at 750 and the King James version from the Greeks at 500. Buddhism. These teachings have deteriorated less than any other religion, with the original teachings by Gautama Siddhartha at level 1000. By the 6th century, it had gone down to 900, with Hinayana Buddhism today at 850 and Mahayana Buddhism at 950, and current Zen Buddhism at 600. Hinduism. Lord Krishna tested at 1000, and today's teachings have gone down to 850. Judaism. Abraham tested at 985. The practice at time of Moses was 770. Modern Judaism at 499, and the Old Testament at 475. Islam. Muhammad's level varied from 740 until age 38 when he took the sword and dropped to 130. The Quran today tests at 570 and extreme fundamentalists at 125 or lower. He found that the more dualistic the creed, the more vulnerable to misinterpretation. Dualism promotes a split in action and belief. The downfall of spiritual teaching is the mistranslations created by those of lower understanding. And all extremists in any religion is similar to criminal at under 125. The skilled are not obvious. In fact, they appear to be simple-minded. Those who know this know the power of the absolute. To know the patterns is the subtle power. The subtle power moves all things and has no name.